Welcome to Garage Talk. As always, I'm Conrad. Let's go.
I'm Ted. It's time to rock and roll. Special guest today, buddy.
Yes, Teddy. Special guest. We have with us the general manager of the Performing Arts Center.
That's close enough.
How we doing, David?
Doing good.
David
good.
Slaughter,
Thanks,
everybody.
man.
Could you do me and Ted a favor and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was born in Indiana, so that's a good start.
Yeah.
I grew up in Kokomo and basically was involved in a lot of team sports, baseball, loved all that. Great family. Had a really great childhood and all that. Ended up going to Taylor University right here nearby, and continued to play a little baseball, a little less basketball at that point in time, but always loved it. And my dad was a baseball coach in Kokomo, so we kind of grew up in a baseball family.
Oh,
so
wow.
A lot of fun to do that. My dear father Keith was known by a lot of people in Howard County. He was actually in the Howard County Coaches Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Their
That's
Sports
cool.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And he's also in, I think, the Indiana Baseball Coaches Hall of Fame. So
Oh, that's awesome.
Fun to grow up in that.
Mm-hmm.
Not to get off on a tangent, but I remember as a little kid, my dad did clinics with had Pete Rose and Johnny Bench come over. And I was
Really?
like, my dad knows people.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun, but baseball was a big part of our life at that point. But
Yeah.
I went to Taylor and graduated there with a business degree, and then really moved to Nashville right out of college and ended up in the music business, and had a little brief stint there, several years of overlapping with the sports industry, and kind of managing talent was kind of my thing for the most part, and in different roles, and concert touring, all that stuff went with it, and so it really has been a lot of fun. And we actually lived in Nashville for 20 years, 21, 22 years, something like that, and moved back to Indiana about 14 years ago, I think. I'd have to do the math, but
Okay.
so we came back, had family here, and a lot of my business was at that point kind of out of state, and gave me the freedom to travel from here as opposed to being there. But we love Nashville. We'll probably end up there again someday, but for the time being, it's great to be back around family and people we grew up with around in Indiana.
I've spent my fair share down in Tennessee, and it's a beautiful state to visit. David, how different is being a talent manager than being your new role as general manager of the Performing Arts Center?
Yeah, it's really it's the opposite side of the fence, and so the idea of managing artists or managing tours, you're the artist coming in, you're basically telling them what you need to make your show work.
Yeah.
And in this role, we're really a host. This basically my company, Noteworthy Entertainment, is contract with the city to basically be we're the management and operations company for the building. So we're effectively the host. And so when people come in, it doesn't matter what they want, what they need. We have to listen to that and try to accommodate that. That's the goal. So the biggest difference is just thinking from the other side of the fence. And so I wouldn't say that my team in the past was highly demanding, but I would say that it's a different role because you walk in with what you need to make your show happen.
Yeah.
Versus in my case now, my team has to be educated on how to make sure the building actually works for the people coming in to play the shows. I made a comment to the mayor the other day. I said, the way that it really boils it down is that, essentially I'm running the building for the city. It's the city owns the building. And then on a day-by-day basis, I end up handing over the reins to some degree to the artists that come in, or the venues that are different could be private events or different other events we're bringing in. I hand over an element of the building to them for them to use it how they can use it. So if they want to set up merchandise on one side of the hall or the other, that's their call.
Yeah.
And so we kind of have to think through their eyes instead, but it helps because I've done that before. It helps to kind of have a little bit of empathy for what they're doing.
And so now you're the provider.
Exactly. Yeah, we're really the host and provider, and so when it comes down to the list of things they need to make their show a success, whether it's ticketing, marketing, catering, production, whatever it may be, it's on us to make that happen. So,
How much outreach is involved with building relationships with the performers, whether that be through one-to-one or digital?
You mean in terms of the ones that are actually coming to the building?
Yeah.
A lot of it, generally there's a team involved, so you're talking to people at different levels of involvement. So you'll talk to people about production separately, you'll talk about hospitality or about merchandise sales or even in the beginning of on sale and announcing promotion campaigns. All that's different team members from each artist, and so it typically is different conversations with different people. And so when we're having that, once we book a show, that's one person. Once we confirm a show, it can go then to somebody saying, now how do you want to go on sale? So it kind of progresses through all the way up to when they actually walk in the door and park their bus out back and start unloading gear. Then we kind of have different people we interact with all the way through the process. So
Wow.
It's not one person for each show. It's usually that team that kind of passes different pieces of it along. So yeah.
So you have a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah, and I mean, we do, and but we've got, I've built a really great team, people that are passionate about the work, that love the idea of being involved in this way, and, it's really about getting them all on board, because this is a fast-paced business when you have shows come into town, and you have to have people that can do what they do, know what they need to do quickly, and so it cannot be bottlenecked with one person who's not delegating authority. So show days are always going to be busy, and you work the best you can to try to, you get into a rhythm where you have certain things are going to work better than others, whether it's, again, how you're staging things and using the building, or it's the way the show's playing, and you have a chance to learn from those mistakes or those improvements, especially with a brand new building. I mean, this is a brand new building, so we've only played a few shows, so you learn things every time, and hey, that probably, people probably need to enter here instead of over there, or concessions lines need to run the other way, or whatever it may be. So, yeah.
You look like a guy who likes a good challenge. What are your favorite challenges when it comes to booking performers to ensure the success of this new venue?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think that on the booking side in particular, I've kind of started saying on a frequent basis that, you try not to be all things to all people, because that's a recipe for disaster, but you want to be a lot of things to a lot of people. You want to try to have a wide variety of programming that people can get a little bit of something in it for every person that's out there cares about is it the geographical reach of the building. And so you want to try to find that balance. You don't want to just do all of one thing, and if people support it, you still want to do things and try to grow an audience for other areas that you can support and grow. So I think finding that balance is probably the biggest challenge when you're trying to think about what will work. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get less shows than you want. You're going to go after a bunch of shows. You're not going to get them all. You're going to constantly be trying to adjust that balance to make sure that there's something for everyone. You want to have programming for young people and kids and family entertainment. You want to have things that are fun. You want to have comedy. You want to have different genres of music. It's just a lot of categories to try to touch on. And you want them all to be somewhat successful. You want them to be things that people realize they had a great event, they had a great opportunity, and it was good for everybody to be there. And so I think just honestly, probably just finding that balance is always an adjustment you do, because if you go after a certain set of shows and you don't get exactly what you wanted, then that changes your balance, and you have to sort of reevaluate and say, hey, I need to go back and pick up a modern, pop artist that if I now have a gap on, or something like that.
So is there a difference between booking musical talent and comedic talent?
Just in the, obviously there's major differences in what they bring in the building. I mean, production-wise, it's, a concert of any kind is different than a comedian. So you've got a much simpler setup on something that's that more like a comedian. But there's really not. I think the process is the same. You're still trying to figure out, are they routing the tour a certain way? Are they doing one-off dates? Are they doing 3 shows in a row? Are they are they trying to plan way in advance? Are they working 4 months out, or 18 months out, or 12 months out? Every kind of area of the business kind of works a different lead time, and so you have to constantly be looking for that. So you might go out and book something that's a year out, and then 6 months later you're booking the stuff that actually normally works 6 months out, and you have to kind of meld those two together. So the process is really the same. It's really not a different process, but what the show is and what it will do, and how it utilizes the building, for example. You can do comedy in a room for 50 people, or you can do it for 2,000 people. So it's a lot the same. But you do a concert, it's for 50 people, it's an acoustic guitar or something. And for 2,000 or 5,000 people, it could be a whole production with rigging and everything else involved. So it's really, this process is very similar overall.
So You've had, what, 3 or 4 concerts under your belt now.
Yeah, yep.
Do you feel like the community engagement was a successful turnout?
Yeah, I think the community is very excited about this project. I mean, this is obviously in the community. It's on a very prominent part of the community in terms of the access and State Road Highway.
Yeah.
So people drive by it all the time. I made a comment a few weeks ago. I said people are going to have to really, they're going to react when they see cars in the parking lot, and it's a different thing. It's one thing to say we're going to do it, another thing to start construction, another thing to say, hey, we're done. It's another thing to have tickets on sale. But when you have cars in the parking lot and people are showing up before a show, coming early, wanting to have refreshments, concessions before the show, they're wanting to hang out a little bit in the lobby, that's just a different environment. And it's a reality check that I think it really proves that. I think we've had that so far. People are coming fairly early and enjoying being here.
Yeah.
Because we did the community day that was essentially a free event. It allowed people to come in and walk around and see all the dressing rooms and all that. So they've had some exposure to it, but I think people just really are excited and want to be here. So we've been really happy with the energy level's been great. I think the people are having a great time. The bands have been great just to get us kind of started with the idea that, hey, this is what it's going to be like. And the matter of fact, the acts have all of them have said amazing, great things about the building and how happy they are to see it.
Fantastic.
Most of them, I think at least 2 or 3 of the 4 have said that they hope that the audience appreciates what's really been put in front of them here, that they'll take advantage, support it, and respect the fact that this is unique and an awesome blessing. And so there's a lot of joy in that I think people are feeding off of, and it's been great. It's been really great reception.
And speaking of that, this is a beautiful facility. I mean, inside and out. Okay, like you said, it's new.
Yeah.
If you go back, I mean, you guys started this. COVID hits.
Yeah.
So it's been a work in the process, like you said, but now to see it all come to fruition,
yeah,
it's just, I can only imagine how many times you and Mayor Rock were out here while this place was going up and you were walking around, and
yeah,
there were probably some pretty crazy conversations.
Yeah, it's like anything. I was telling somebody again about the time we opened. I said, this is like any major event that you look forward to for a long time, where you have if it's a wedding for someone, or if it's a graduation or whatever, and you kind of get to the point where you're actually doing it, it's almost shocking. It's almost surreal that you're doing it. And I got involved really as just helping a friend. I mean, I had a friend introduce me to the project and just said, would you sit down and talk to them and kind of give them some input. And so it's really only recently that they asked me to kind of take this role. And so, this was really, I was already up to speed with it because I'd walked alongside them. But it's been fun to see all the people that have come in along the way to make it happen from the city, and even the people the city brought in, construction companies, and contractors, but also architects, everybody that had to play a role in it. And it does become a little surreal when you realize that, hey, it's now time to do what it was meant to do. And so there's a very well-known artist manager that says, as an artist manager, our job is to make our artists' dreams come true. He's legendary for saying it. And that's kind of what happens in a thing like this. The operator that comes in is really just trying to make the ultimate dream come true. And so trying to give the city, the community, the mayor, everybody the opportunity to really enjoy the building the way it's meant to be enjoyed.
How many years have you been doing this again?
A long time.
Long time.
I don't have to say that, do I? No, it's a documented fact. I graduated college in 1985, so I'm pushing almost 40 years of being involved in business somehow.
Wow.
Has there ever been a performer that you were a fanboy of or starstruck, that you were like, oh man, I can't believe I'm getting ready to meet this guy?
Oh, that's funny. My first thought when you started that sentence was it would not necessarily go to a music artist.
Okay.
Because there is a little bit of like, you do get. I mean, I've not lived the life a lot of people have, where they've just been in and out of a lot of even higher level relationships and work than what I've done. But I had an opportunity one time. It was in a management situation where my client was invited to play in a golf tournament, and it was a pro-am, but they were adding celebrities to it. So my client was playing as a celebrity. There was a PGA Tour player playing, and there was a famous personality that was not a music artist. It was for VH1, and the artist, we'd found out who was going to be playing. The celebrity was Bill Murray, and so
Oh,
I
yeah.
was very happy. I was going to be with the artist anyway, and I said, I'm going to caddy for you that day. So I caddied, and long story made short, at the turn, the other person in the group, which happened to be Richie Sambora,
Oh my goodness.
bailed after 9 holes, and so the tour player knew me and said, "Go get your bag, go get your sticks."
Okay.
So I finished the back 9 with Bill Murray, which was probably one of the like surreal moments again.
Yeah.
Where you're
Wow.
kind of thinking about how bizarre that is. This person I grew up laughing at his
Man.
comedic
Carl?
genius. Oh yeah,
Carl, the groundskeeper? Are you
Exactly,
kidding me?
exactly.
That's
And-
awesome.
And just like those kind of people, those incredible talents are, he was just like everybody always says, he was funnier off camera than on camera, and just those little things that you just can't even remember. You laughed your entire time you're there. So it was, but that was probably the one. That's the one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
I would say there was just a little bit of a wow moment there where you realized that, and actually got to do it again the next year for the whole 18. So
Wow.
it was kind of a fun treat.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Man, back-to-back years.
But I think that there's the music side. I've been fortunate to be in situations where you have a lot of quick encounters with a lot of major artists and whatever, and it's a lot of fun to just see that they're just. I mean, again, everybody says it's a cliche, but there's just a desire to let them be normal. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go to events and you'll see people playing blackjack at a casino, and because it's just something they want to do to mix in, and they don't So I think there's some of that, but a lot of that is what you create. If you want to create a persona, you can create it. And,
Right.
And Carl was not one of those pretentious personalities.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the one that comes to mind.
Well, we know you're a busy man. We got a couple more questions. We won't keep you that much longer. I gotta ask: is there do you guys have a meeting group of venue managers that you guys get together and say, hey, we're gonna have this guy and this guy and this guy? Are you guys gonna have him too?
Oh yeah, it's funny. There's probably a 2-part answer to that.
Okay.
There's a lot of events that are really around venue organizations, that there are conferences and things where a lot of people
Okay.
get together and they'll talk about trends and opportunities to do better in the business. So like it could be security, it could be COVID, it could be, and people will say, what did we learn from COVID? And they'll do typical conference type breakout things. So there's those that happen, and those are attended by hundreds, if not maybe, I don't know, thousands potentially. They're large conferences that happen 2 or 3 a year. But what you're really referring to is probably more likely happens on a more informal basis. There's, most of the buildings that are within a certain geographical region, you typically want to, have the ability to pick up the phone and know the person. And so, like when I agreed to kind of take this on, I now, I think I know all the buildings that are basically within, 75 miles or 100 miles, maybe 120 miles. And so, when those things do happen, usually a lot of times it's about just making sure it's okay, being respectful to say, hey, you're booking this act here. I'm going to book them 6 months from now, but I'm going to hold off promotion, or they'll ask me to hold off promotion till their show plays. There's those kind of things where you're just cooperating together, because the minute that you become selfish about it, then somebody else, you're going to need a favor from somebody else. So you have to just have a dialogue to say, here's something we're doing. It's not as common to, because everybody's got different agendas of what they're trying to do. So you don't really go out and like collectively book together, but because you're on all different schedules and times and budgets and whatever else. But there is a lot of that. Hey, if I need something, I can pick up the phone, ask a question, and say, hey, are you okay with me doing this? And a lot of times there's a good respect with giving them, hey, you've already booked a show. I'm going to talk to you before I do something. But that happens more informally. The other part is more about just the camaraderie of people who do the same job. You want to know each other and across the country, because somebody in California I might have more in common with than I might have with somebody that's a mile from me, or 100 miles from me, because they might be booking more similar to me than what the guy is in my own state.
So you're not just a general manager, you're a relationship builder.
Yeah, I think that when you're, you can. It's a complicated. there's a complicated list of options, I guess, that you can do. So you can do what I'm doing and not do all the pieces of the process you have to do. In my case, I'm pretty much doing them all. My team is, we're booking, we're marketing, we're managing, we're doing private things, we're seeing all the production through. So, a lot of times a venue will decide, hey, we're going to have somebody else book it, or we're going to have somebody else do all the outside, production or whatever it may be, and they'll have pieces of it that they'll do, more of or less of. But that's it's a very unique thing based on whatever is fitting your model. And so in our case, we are doing a lot of that, and part of that's just the fact that I felt like it was important that a building like this, it has some unique, characteristics, being that, we are trying to appeal to multiple counties, multiple cities, trying to grow our audience. Then you want to be a little bit more, a little less programmatic in how you're booking. So you want to be able to have the freedom to say, I'm going to do that, but everybody else is going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And that unique and individualistic approach is kind of important. And I felt like that was important for us to be able to steer that and control that in the early days. Every year you look at it, you reevaluate. It could change, but there's a lot of ways to do this business. You can carve it up a bunch of different ways with different people involved. But we do virtually most of it, all of it, really right now.
Well, I see a lot of big success coming your way, man. We love this building, and I have some family that went to the Beatles concert. They loved it. They thought it was amazing. We like what you're doing.
Good.
David?
Love it.
Definitely. It's
We greatly appreciate you.
big things coming. Now, we do have to ask, though, it's baseball season, the playoffs. You're a former baseball player. Who are you rooting for in the playoffs?
And I'll tell you what, this whole I'm not keeping up with it like I used to, but watching these series, these championship series, is pretty interesting. I mean, I find the Yankees a pretty interesting story by far. So I'm not as
Let's
much of a
go.
hardcore fan right now, but I love watching it. I
Right.
love
Yeah.
the drama that comes, and I feel a little bit sad sometimes because I've become a playoff and World Series watcher,
Right.
just like I have with the
Yeah.
NBA, a little more than I'd like to be.
the way a lot of people
but,
are.
But there's so much to consume anymore, and we're all busy. But it is going to be kind of fun.
Yes.
And that's, but no, I do have another question, though, because you're talking about, your dad coached in Kokomo. He's in the Hall of Fame, and the Underwood brothers came through Kokomo, right?
They did. And
You had two of them that made the MLB.
They were 8 years of constant terror for my dad.
Oh, I
'Cause
bet.
My dad was at Hayworth.
Okay.
And they were at Kokomo. And so every year he knew he had to go through them to get anywhere. And of course, like baseball, like all sports usually does, he developed great friendships with those guys over
Right.
the years after that. And my dad passed away about 5 years ago. But they had a lot of fun with that. And my brother could quote this better than I can, but if I'm not mistaken, I think my dad won, more than the 4 sectionals during that time, I think.
Really?
And so, but he won his fair share and then some, because those guys were just amazing
Oh, yeah.
talents. And there was a lot of Major League Baseball players that came out of Kokomo in that era. And my dad had a couple, but that was they were really a force. And
They were.
those guys were, and I was a left-handed pitcher, so
Really?
I was thrilled with watching them pitch.
Yeah,
What's your pitch? What's your favorite one?
I had a sucker curveball that was as a left-hander. I had a because of my head start with my dad and my brother, who was my catcher, and we obviously worked a lot in the summer. He was not a catcher; he just was my catcher in the backyard. But I had this curveball that started when I was probably about 11 or 12. And I could bring it in 3 feet from outside and catch the corner.
Ooh,
and
wow.
at 12 and 13 years old, I was just getting more called strikeouts than I deserved. But I tell people I peaked when I was about 14, I think. But I was just at a high school reunion in Kokomo probably 4 or 5 years ago, and had a classmate come up to me and said, I still remember you just nailed me every time. I never hit off you. But I had a head start, and it's funny how that goes. But my dad really did have a lot of fun with those guys. And
I'm
my
sure.
dad's claim to fame, by the way, was that in 1970 he went to the state finals, and they got beat. And the guy that beat them was their best player on the team. But he was pitching. He was not even their best pitcher, I don't think. I can't remember. I think he was definitely very good. But he was one of those things where he pitched that game. It was no class baseball, so
Right,
it was 2
yep.
games with state. And he pitched the first game against my dad, and I would think he went like 3 for 5 and hit a home run and whatever. But his name was Don Mattingly. So
What?
my dad ran into Don Mattingly in the state finals, and had that not happened, they had a really really good team. But
Donnie baseball?
he was
Man.
a Mack truck to my dad's team.
Man.
It was crazy.
From
I
Evansville.
I remember being in the around that game and just realizing this is like another level. It was just it was to watch him play and pitch was impressive. But,
Wow.
Great history fun.
Yeah.
See,
David, go ahead.
Thank you guys.
And I'm thinking that, so Indiana Wesleyan had a guy a few years ago from Kokomo, I believe. Brandon Beachy, is that
Yes,
correct?
Yeah, and my brother knew his dad and played baseball with his dad. And so, matter of fact, we're telling stories now. One
that's
of
fine.
my
Tell
favorite
'em.
memories from my dad in the last 10 years was when I was living here. My brother and I arranged to take him to Wrigley Field when Brandon pitched.
Really?
And so my dad, baseball lover, of course, and my brother and I all went up there and drove up to Wrigley and watched him pitch.
Wow,
It was
that's
amazing.
cool.
And I think Brandon had Tommy John surgery
Yeah.
shortly after that. So it was one of the last games. I think maybe the last 5 or 6 games he pitched.
Wow.
But my dad loved it. It was a great thing. But yeah, Brandon was a great talent.
Yeah. Yep.
Really fun. Great
That's
sport.
awesome.
David, we appreciate you taking time
Yep, we do.
out of your very busy schedule to sit with us. We appreciate you and thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the building.
Yeah.
Appreciate it,
Thank you,
guys.
sir.
Absolutely.
Everybody needs to come out here.
Come out.
Love it.